The Urban Affairs Coalition is excited to honor Mr. Kenneth C. Fraizer, Chairman, CEO, and President of Merck & Company, with our 2017 Doer Award. This award was created in honor of Edward G. Rendell, former mayor and governor, to recognize an individual who, like Ed, has made Philadelphia a better place to live, work, and play. Ken, a native Philadelphian, has been with Merck, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, for 25 years, serving as chairman, president, and CEO since 2011. He is the first African American to serve in these roles at a major pharmaceutical company. Ken's lifelong commitment to diversity, education, and equal justice embodies the values of the coalition since its inception in 1968, which makes him more than deserving of this recognition.
Good morning. I'm Terry Lee Taylor. I am a proud member of the UAC board, and I am a super fan, like we all are, of Charmaine Matlock-Turner and her team for all the fantastic work that they do. On behalf of Merck, my colleagues that are here today, and for the 12,000 employees that we have that live, work, and play right in this area, we're honored, very honored, to be a lead sponsor of this breakfast once again. This has been a phenomenal opportunity for us to partner, and we couldn't find a better partner to do it with. And so really want to, at this time, then bring on State Attorney Josh Shapiro to share some of his thoughts and to also bring on Ken.
Good morning, everyone. It is wonderful to be with you, and let me express similar regards about Charmaine Matlock-Turner, who does extraordinary work day in and day out. Thank you for your tremendous leadership. There are so many wonderful people involved in UAC, but let me give a special shout out to Grant Rawdon, who time and time again steps up to help in meaningful ways and is a dear friend. Thank you, Grant. A year ago, I stood before you just a few days after an election to serve as your state attorney general. Honored and grateful to so many in this room for this special responsibility. Today, a year later, I wanted to come back and just briefly tell you that we are working doggedly to ensure equality and opportunity for each and every Pennsylvanian. I take this responsibility seriously, and most importantly, apply the law in the Commonwealth without fear and without favor. Whether it's battling a dealer on the street corner, standing up to some multinational corporation, or even holding the President of the United States accountable, we are working hard for you every day. It's clear to me that government can do a lot. You heard from the congressman earlier, and you've heard from other elected leaders. But what I've seen clearly over this past year is that while government can do a lot, people can do a whole lot more, especially when they are organized, especially when they have an organization like UAC that shares common values and has important purpose. That is what UAC does day in and day out. I've been asked whether it's combating gun violence in our communities or battling the heroin opioid epidemic. They say, General, if you had a magic wand, what would it be? What could we possibly do to address these challenges in our community? What is clear is that magic wand has nothing to do with law enforcement and everything to do with education. And I wanted to publicly thank UAC for their extraordinary work on education, whether it's Read by Fourth or their efforts on pre-K or their work with summer jobs. They recognize that we've got to lift up everyone in our communities to give them an opportunity, and through that, I know we can create safer communities. You are all making a difference. You are all doing, and you are all understanding the words of Scripture that says no one is required to complete the task, but neither are we free to refrain from it. Each and every person in this room has a responsibility to get off the sidelines and get in the game and do something. The person we are honoring here today with the Doer Award is someone who has spent his life on the field and off the sidelines making a difference for others. Ken is an example of the kind of talent that the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection can create. Ken is an exemplary business leader. He's driving innovation in the pharmaceutical industry, which is quite literally saving lives every day. He's a highly regarded attorney, a man of courage and a man of character. He's a man of conviction who, notwithstanding the limitations sometimes of corporate America, is willing to take a stand, is willing to act principled. In an era of great divisiveness, I think we all recognize that leaders must speak and act with moral clarity, which is why in the wake of Charlottesville, Ken wasted no time in standing up and saying, America's leaders must honor our fundamental values by clearly rejecting expressions of hatred, bigotry, and group supremacy, which run counter to the American ideal that all people are created equal. I don't know about you, but a sense of pride came within me when I saw Ken Fraizer, Philadelphia's own, Pennsylvania's own, standing up the way he did at a dark time in our nation's history and demonstrating to us that there is hope, demonstrating to us what real true class and conviction mean, and demonstrating that there is reason to smile and feel good in our community. Ken has been a trailblazer in so many ways. Just read his resume. But more importantly than anything written in his bio, anything written on that resume, anything written in his corporate minutes or his years of public service, is that Ken is a doer. He knows how to get things done. And it's my honor on behalf of UAC to now present the Doer Award to Merck's own, Philadelphia's own, Pennsylvania's own, Ken Fraizer.
Thank you so much, General Shapiro, for that very overly kind introduction. I also want to thank my colleague, Terry Lee Taylor, for all she does on behalf of our company, as well as all she does on behalf of this wonderful, wonderful organization. Receiving this award, which was created in honor of Governor Rendell, is especially meaningful to me. And I want to say again to General Shapiro, we thank you for all the work that you're doing to restore integrity to law enforcement in this state and to the Office of the Attorney General. I know if Governor Rendell were here, he would also second that, because it's really important that at the highest echelons of the state government, particularly law enforcement, we actually have tremendous opportunities to see people acting with principle, so thank you. I'm honored to be here today because of the important work done by the Urban Affairs Coalition to improve not only Philadelphia, the city where I was born, but other communities in this region as well. I want to acknowledge the many leaders and speakers we have heard from this morning, especially the president of the Urban Affairs Coalition, Charmaine Matlock-Turner, city and state officials, our congressmen, and other award winners. I'm also glad to be joined here today by many of my Merck colleagues, as well as my wife, Andrea. I want to take a moment to highlight the theme of today's breakfast, Still I Rise. This, of course, is a tribute to the great Maya Angelou poem. To me, this poem has always been a mantra of self-belief and perseverance. For me, I'm very fortunate these are gifts that my parents sought to instill in me and my siblings. I grew up not far from here in North Philly. In some ways, it wasn't always the easiest place in town to grow up, but I had the good fortune to have great parents and a supportive community of caring adults, both in my church and on my block. My mother died when I was fairly young. My father then assumed the role of a single parent, which was very unusual for a man in the 1960s, particularly one who lacked, let us say, domestic gifts. He also, I will tell you, wasn't a very sentimental man when it came to his children, but boy, did he know how to motivate. In terms of formal education, my father, who was born in South Carolina at the turn of the 20th century, in the year 1900, had only what passed for a third-grade education for a black child in South Carolina. He worked his whole life as a janitor. But despite the limitations imposed on him by the interconnected forces of race, class, and geography, he was a most astute and highly dignified man. Put differently, he refused to let others define him, much less stop him from becoming a man in full. We didn't have a lot when we were growing up, but it didn't stop him from teaching me that I could do literally anything. He pushed me, especially when it came to education. And when I looked around at my boyhood friends, I sometimes got really frustrated and complained that I had to study harder than anyone else. And you know what he would say, pretty unsympathetically? You aren't supposed to be like anybody else. When I was coming up, it wasn't always easy to work hard to try to excel in school. Studying and working hard had its cost. You could be ostracized. Back then, however, confrontations rarely went beyond fistfights. There were few guns in those days. Compare that today when right now more than 150 teenagers have been shot in Philadelphia this year. With the help of caring parents and adults, I was encouraged to be my best self by learning that it was okay to be different, to be self-sufficient, and in essence, not to be a follower. When I look back, I realize it was those critical lessons that enabled me to discover and pursue my own direction in life. In my current position, I have the good fortune of interacting with global business and academic leaders and even heads of state. I often think of my parents, and I thank God that they had both the vision and the determination to make this privileged life possible for me. So why am I telling you this story? I don't want to be autobiographical. It's the story of any kid growing up in North Philly. One of the most invidious lies told in our society is that children are fundamentally constrained by the circumstances in which they're born and raised. It is a falsehood. The kids growing up in today's neighborhoods around Philadelphia just need adults who see their potential. I am evidence of one thing and one thing only, and that is that kids will either live up to or down to the standards of the grown-ups that are around them. Having people who believe in us, who guide us, is not only important for children, but for all vulnerable individuals. It is equally important for vulnerable communities, too. According to Pew Research, more than a quarter of people in Philadelphia currently live in poverty, with over 12% of the city living in deep poverty, which means you have an income under 50% of the federal poverty level, which I can tell you is a very small number. That is why you have to sign those cards with a number on them. That is why the Urban Affairs Coalition's work here in Philadelphia is so critical. I especially admire how UAC serves as a home for so many other community-based groups in recognition that we need a multitude of approaches to solve today's poverty-related challenges. We all need to work together to create the bridge that the next generation so desperately needs. At Merck, we invest in research that tackles disease with the knowledge that these problems could take multiple generations to solve. It is in that spirit that I again applaud the Urban Affairs Coalition, which has been pursuing its mission for nearly half a century while working to engage the next generation of leaders to ensure the sustainability of the organization. I'm grateful for this honor and also for this organization that is helping others overcome their circumstances and participate in their lives fully. In closing, I would like to also congratulate the other award winners on their worthy recognition and thank everyone who is attending today's breakfast and supports UAC's mission. Thank you for this award and for your generous listening.